Time. Leisure time. Did you ever stop to think how much leisure time you really have? Some of us put our leisure time to good use. And some of us, Ken Michaels, for example, spend most of our leisure time just moping.
Moping? He thinks I'm moping. Well, who wouldn't mope? There's nothing to do, nobody's around. You know how it is. I went down to the bowling alley, went over to the drugstore. None of the gang was there. All my friends are busy, so what's for me to do?
Do you suppose Ken has more leisure time than his friends do?
Huh? Well, no, I don't have more time. We all spend about the same amount of time in school, and the rest is leisure time. I've got nothing to do but wait for supper. My friends have more things to do. They're lucky.
Ken's pretty lucky, too.
Listen to that. All right, I'll bite. Why am I lucky?
Because you have so much leisure time. Time in which you can do things you enjoy. Time in which you don't have to work.
Like this, huh? Is that good?
Let me show you a few things. Suppose you had lived 100 years ago. What would you have been like? Take a look.
Where? Oh, is that me? Is that what I would have looked like 100 years ago?
Well, perhaps. But now, well, let's look back 100 years again and see someone else.
Who? Hey, that's my dad.
Young man, you get off that bed and get to work. After you clean out the stable, you can build some new steps for the back porch. While I work 72 hours a week, no son of mine is going to loaf.
72 hours?
12 hours a day, 6 days a week. Tomorrow morning, young man, you're going out to get a regular job. You can work too, and earn your keep.
Not so good, Ken? Well, let's try another picture. Say about 50 years ago.
Oh, hello, son. Well, say, I've got some new pictures for the stereoscope. We'll look at them tonight. Don't forget about your chores. Have them all done by the time I'm through work. And keep the wood box full.
Boy, how long will you work, Dad?
Why, 10 hours. 10 hours a day, every day except Sunday.
60 hours a week? Boy.
Well, Ken, let's take a look at your father's time as it really is today.
Hi, Dad. You sure don't work as long hours as they used to.
That's right, Ken. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do so much work in so little time. This 40-hour week suits me fine. And some people even work shorter hours nowadays. But by the way, Ken, how'd you like to play a quick round of golf before supper? I think we can work it in. And then later I'd like to shellac that new bookcase I'm making.
Well, Ken?
Yes, Dad does enjoy his leisure time. And to think that a few years ago, people didn't have nearly so much time to themselves.
Yes, we've gained a lot of leisure time in the last century or so. All of us.
Wait a minute. All of us? Mother should hear you say that. She's always complaining that she doesn't have enough time.
Well, let's see about that. Can you picture your mother?
I thought a lot about how to do this for today, especially. Before I begin, I want to apologize if you hear anything in the background, particularly a high-pitched weeing sound. I think that those are my pipes. I think my pipes are... I'm getting that fixed. I'm trying to get that. So if that's there, I apologize. But yeah, no, I've thought a lot about how to do this stream because I did promise I would do it many moons ago. And frankly speaking, I don't think this is gonna have a lot of. I think one of the reasons why I don't think is because I am Karasufanor. Right? I'm the first and last philosopher VTuber. I'm the last librarian of Alexandria. The reason why I don't think it would get that much outreach is because I'm a male VTuber. And I think that is immediately a turnoff for like 80% of the men that need to hear this. Because it's gay, you know? Why? I don't want to watch a male VTuber. That's kind of gay. I don't want to do that. I get it. I understand. But that's kind of... This is the stream where I unironically say this is a safe space for men. Or at least I hope it is, okay? This is the stream where I unironically say that. Okay, I'm not going to do it in any other stream. This is going to be this one, okay? Because we are talking about something that's a bit serious. Or at least I want to take it seriously. I don't want to make light of it. I don't want to make fun of it. I don't think it's... there's much to make fun of. I think there's a lot of stake. Gay as in happy, right? No, gay as in homosexual, and of course with the unspoken implication that homosexuality bad. And homosexuality not masculine, and not masculine equals bad, and I'm not fulfilling my performative masculinity enough, right? I thought for a long time how to do this. I had originally planned to pull up some research. I wanted to pull up some academic articles. I wanted to pull up some cases. I wanted to maybe pull up an interview. I wanted to pull up different videos as well from different people explaining what patriarchy is, explaining what these struggles are. All those things, but like I feel like that doesn't get to the thing, you know? There's a degree, well, part of the reason why it's so difficult to talk about this stuff, the male loneliness epidemic, and the fact that, well, I'm happy, or I'm not happy to say that it's real, is that there is a huge hurdle of accepting, for example, the value of certain academic research and whatever, accepting words such as patriarchy being used, and people don't like that word, right? And I understand why you wouldn't like that, because it's kind of like a, you know, it's the same reason why a lot of men, and I'm coming from a place of sympathy, don't really like the word feminism. The word feminism is weird because it's like, you know, I'm a guy and I'm alone and I'm suffering and I've got no meaningful relationships and everything is just, you know, it's going downhill, and maybe my wife or my girlfriend left me and took everything from me. And you're telling me that the reason behind all of that is because men have always had it good? What the fuck does that mean? I'm a man right now and I'm suffering. That doesn't get to you. So I understand. And so in favor of this being, I suppose, and there's no other way to say this, fucking real, I have decided and elected not to talk about any of that. I've elected not to, or at least I've elected not to bring up evidence and like structure it like an argument or like a point to be made and argued for, like a debate. I don't think that's very useful. What a coincidence, just finished watching Adolescence. There's a lot of interest. I haven't yet watched it yet, but I've heard a lot of interesting things about it. Anyways, let's get this out of the way. The male loneliness epidemic, maybe not the way you understand the word, but the way it's been coined and talked about by some people is real. And I hope maybe you don't have a misunderstanding of what this is, but what I mean by it's real is that, and I'm not going to quote the exact numbers because I'm trying not to do that, but this is the portion of the introduction of what I'm about to say that kind of has to be backed by some sort of evidence. But just, I suppose for the purposes of this stream, you're just going to have to trust what I'm saying, okay? And I understand that's difficult, okay? The male loneliness epidemic is kind of real. In a lot of Western countries that have been surveyed recently, I think, and these surveys are sent and done by men and women. men have reportedly, on many, like on pretty much across the board everywhere, reported less meaningful relationships in their lives. Not just compared to the women, but also compared to the men, maybe say 20 years ago, right? And how they felt about it. Men are lonelier than ever, and it's not just the lack of a romantic partner, it's also just the lack of friends, circles, and close friends, and friend groups and circles. It's also the case that not only do men disproportionately more commonly suffer from this loneliness epidemic. Among those surveyed in these studies, men on average compared to women have reported higher rates of suicide. I think it's like 3 times higher. The suicide rate of like men who report symptoms of like, you know, loneliness or whatever, prior to, you know, killing themselves, in the limited, and this is a very limited amount of research, so I'm happy to be proven wrong or be shown more data, are 3 times more likely to commit suicide than women are, due to these issues. I remember seeing that men's suicide rates are higher, but the women's attempted rates are higher. Interesting distinction. But yeah, yeah, take that. Keep that in mind, I suppose. Yeah. So suffice to say, it's not like there's nothing going on, right? It's not like nothing is going on and everything's fine. But the reason it's really tough to talk about this is because the women don't really want to talk about it. Most of the women, not like a lot of women, not all, you know, most women have enough shit to deal with that the last thing they want to engage with is men's issues. Okay? And can you fault them? I mean, not really. I understand. And so women don't want to talk about it. Okay, what about the men? The men really don't want to talk about it. The last thing men want to do is talk about their feelings, because the last time they did that, their girlfriend left them. The last time, when was, like, and again, I'm asking the men because it is a gendered question, really. Do you remember the last time you opened up about yourself to someone? Or maybe do you remember the first time? Maybe not the last time, but the first time. Which was hopefully a different time and not the same time. Hopefully the last time was not also the first time, but, you know, do you remember the first time when you were conscious of the way you felt and, you know, certain things going on with you that you were suffering or having trouble with, and confiding in someone else, like an adult maybe, or a trusted authority figure, what their response was? Because it's quite likely that the response was like, boys shouldn't cry, you know, man up and deal with the problem, you know, don't stop crying, doesn't help, crying doesn't matter. What matters is what you do, your actions, you take those actions. And you've had the instinct and impulse of, you know, conversing genuinely from soul to soul beaten out of you. That's not uncommon. And this shit is not just, you know, for little boys. This is like, this type of thing is for all the way up to adolescent teens and like eventually grown ass men. Everything I'm saying shouldn't be controversial. Or so far, what I should be saying is generally agreeable to everyone. Men have these problems to deal with. Women don't want to talk about them, on average. Again, I'm not saying no woman has ever talked about it. I'm saying, you know, generally women don't want to talk about it because women have other shit to deal with. And they don't know how to deal with this. But also men don't want to talk about them. That makes it so that it's really difficult, and the only reason why some people talking about it now is because okay, I don't want to say, I want to retract that sentence. I don't want to say it because as if there was one reason or like a set list of reasons. But one of the reasons I speculate why this is finally being talked about a little bit more is because of how bad the situation is and how extreme that divide is. I speculate also that another one of the reasons why this is finally being brought to light a little bit is because we can see the results of these vulnerable men who don't know what the fuck to do with their lives, really, but just in general, what the hell to do after when they realize they're not manly enough, or they want to learn how to be a real man and achieve financial freedom or whatever the fuck they're being sold on. A lie either way, but like the gurus like the Andrew Tates of the world, and that's partially where people are driven towards, or like influencers or even public intellectuals, and even public pseudo intellectuals who claim to offer a sympathetic perspective for men and go, okay, men, I hear you. It's difficult. Life's difficult, isn't it? And of course, the men who have it tough are going to be like, yeah, finally, I'm being heard. Finally, someone's talking about me. And then, they go on some insane shit and start talking about like cultural Marxism or whatever. I'm looking at a certain Peterson, but And I'm going to be honest, I understand that it's hard to hear from me, but it's going to probably, because partially it's even harder to hear from, maybe, for example, a woman who speaks on these issues, like a bell hooks or something, right? Because, first of all, it's like, what do women know about our struggles? But it's also like, okay, but what's in it for you? Why do you care about men's issues so much? What are you selling? I think that's very fair. And more importantly, or rather more relevantly, you're a male VTuber, Karen Sufanor. Why are you trying to appeal to men? Why are you trying to talk about men's issues? What the fuck? Why do you care that men are lonely? You're probably not lonely. You don't know what it's like. Here's what I have to say. Yes, I'm presenting myself in a certain way to you right now, it's cringe. Yeah, like VTubing is pretty cringe. That, I'll give it to you. That's a free one. But also, it's kind of gay, that's a little gay. I'll give that to you as well. But because of those things, it might seem difficult to hear the words I'm saying, right? So allow me to connect with you on a level that's hopefully from man to man. I worry a lot about men's issues, and these issues specifically. The male loneliness epidemic is real to me, not because like I myself personally have that stake in my own experiences, but because adjacently there are a lot of men, older, younger, and little boys as well, in my life that I feel responsible for. And I think, and I care about them a lot, and I want them to grow up, and I want them to succeed, and it hurts me when they want to do some shit and then they're not allowed to, and they're told that like that's a girl thing, you're not allowed to do that. Or like when they try to express themselves and have difficulty in doing so, I'm trying to offer them the opportunity to. I'm trying to talk to them about their feelings, and then you can see the effects of constantly being shut down when they shut themselves down and go, you know what, actually, whatever. It's not even important. Like, I don't care. It doesn't affect me. But it does. You see the pain in their eyes. And that hurts me a lot. So when I speak about men, and I speak about, like, you know, particularly the experiences of little boys growing up, this is coming from a place where I cannot bear to see them grow into this fucking asinine world that exists right now. I cannot in good faith bear witness to this suffering around people so close to me, just because I myself personally may not deal with those issues to that extent. But I can't in good faith like witness that and just go like, well, I mean, it's not my problem, so I don't have to deal with it. No, I have to deal with it, and sometimes it feels like I'm the only one who's dealing with it, which is one of the traps for why it may seem futile. Why this approach? Why this understanding of the male loneliness epidemic, or like just men who suffer from being told by other men how to be a man. It's difficult to engage with all of these things because of that. So hopefully that gives some credence to why I'm speaking on this, right? Because, you know, why the hell else would you? You don't care, you know, why do you care, Karis? You've claimed to have lots of friends, and you seem not socially bankrupt. You surely don't understand what's going on. Motherfucker, I do. I do get what's going on. And I get how serious it is. And I'm tired of the constant downplaying of both men and women who say, you know what, it's not that big of a deal. Or, you know, insert other thing, here's a bigger deal. Because I don't think it's a competition for who has it worse. I don't want anyone coming in and going like, okay, but yeah, you're talking about men's issues, but what about like, but you know, so surely you can say at least that men have it harder than women because of late. Like, I'm not going to trap myself in your asinine, false ultimatum circumstances where you're trying to corner me into saying something that just fuels and stokes a war between people who are suffering. You know what that's like? That's kind of like, you know what that, yeah, you know what that's like? That's kind of, there's a lot of examples racing through my head, but I don't want to say them because I don't think it might be exactly appropriate as a comparison, because they bring up a lot of other issues that are not quite related to this one today, so I'm not going to. Thank you for talking about this. You're welcome. I'm trying to keep this short so it's not too difficult to swallow, and more importantly, I'm trying to keep it informal. Because once you get into the data and you know, or all the research and the studies, it becomes difficult and it becomes like, it's sort of alienating, right? Because it's not real, you know, like you can look at the stats and the numbers and like oh, here's what these things say and here's what these theories propose and here's why, you know, I'm suffering. But that doesn't explain why, if you're a guy, all your life you've been told that the only adequate way, there's only one emotion you're allowed to express, you know, directly or otherwise, right? Well, the only emotion you're really allowed to express is anger, and it's a sort of justified anger that spurs you into a sort of, if not violent, action. And really, I'm thinking a bit more of the younger people than the older ones. But I'm thinking about everyone in. Like, I've seen the fucked up, horrible shit that adult men do to other adult men and to other children, other little boys as well. It's been talked about extensively in detail. So a video that comes to mind, and it was something I considered showing as well for this stream briefly, was a snippet from FD Signifier's video. It was like a Signified B-sides video. It's just like second channel video where he talks a bit about DJ Academics, I think, and like, you know, the whole incident where he was like, him and a bunch of other grown-ass men were on like a Zoom call with this 14-year-old kid trying to like essentially trying to goad him into like sexual activity. And that's like, I don't have to just I don't want to rehash what the hell he said in his video, because, you know, that's just his video that you should watch. It's really good. But I was going to take a portion of that video where he explains briefly what patriarchy means and just play it. But I feel as though it's probably more real if I just tell you what I see it as, right? What the whole issue is. Sorry, back to the point I was saying though. I want to speak on this partially because I care a bit more about the younger boys than I care about the men. Because it's kind of like I'm trying to stop the leak before I fix the pipe. Like I'm trying to fix the pipe. I'm trying to stop the leak before I clean up the floor. Because you can try to clean up the floor, but if it's still leaking, then, you know, you're gonna have more to clean up. So I'm trying to stop the leaking first, okay? A huge part is how socially unacceptable it is to admit to being an incel if you are one. More and more men are struggling with this, and the stigma is still absolutely normal. Oh yeah. So the term incels is fucked up. Like, we've just totally destroyed we've nuked the word into orbit because we use it now, and because we love weaponizing shit. And this is not just men, this is women, this is the MBs too. Yeah, like all you motherfuckers, we love weaponizing things against our enemies. We love doing that. Whoever our enemy is, I want to throw this shit at it because it feels good to fight back. Because what else do you do when you're beaten down, right? I get that too. I understand that too. Is that maybe a good place to start? I'm gonna get to the word incel in a little bit, but let's get to that later, right? Okay. First thing I want to talk about is a hard sell. It's a hard fucking sell, because academically, and the way a lot of informed, in my opinion, relatively intelligent people talk about this issue is they talk about it as patriarchy. That's what they call it. They call it patriarchy, and they refer to the whole system of patriarchy that's been perpetuated in society. But that's a hard sell, because if you're a dude suffering, the last thing you want to hear is how men have had it good the last 200 years or something, because you're thinking like, well, what the fuck, why couldn't that be me? I get that. So I'm not going to talk about that word. I'm not going to say it because it's irrelevant to you. Like, this doesn't make any goddamn sense, right? Here's maybe something that's a bit easier to understand. Have you ever had like a moment in your childhood where you wanted to do something? Not for any reason other than you're like, I don't know, fuck, I just want to do it. Or like, I'm just gonna pick this because it's like, you know, I think it's nice or whatever. And you've been told not to do it because you're a boy or like you're a guy, and guys don't do that. It can even be minute shit. Like I remember when I was a lot younger, just wanting to pick. We were picking out like not clothes. It was like bed sheets or whatever, or like a pillow or something. And it was not even like this shit isn't even seen outside. Like people aren't even gonna see it. It's literally just at home. I wanted to pick something, and it was just pink. And I didn't give a fuck that it was pink. I was just like, whatever, this looks comfortable. I want to bring this back to my room or whatever. And then the adults in my life telling me, oh, you can't do that, actually. Don't do that, because that's like a girly color. It's not like you can't do it, but oh, don't do that. Don't get that. That's a girly color. You should get like the blue one. And I was like, well, and at the time, I wasn't like distraught. I wasn't like, no, I loved her. I loved the pink pillow. That wasn't what I was thinking. I was just like, okay, I don't know why, but fuck it, whatever. I'll just get the blue pillow. I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter to me again. And then I walk, maybe you walk into a shopping mall, and then you're trying to look for, you're a dude, right? You're walking into the shopping mall, you're going in the bathroom, and you're like, oh shit, I gotta go. You're as a kid, you're like, I have to go to the bathroom somewhere. And you're trying to look for the signs, and the signs are, they're doing this shit now where they like they make this the symbols even more ludicrous and absurd, so you can't even tell which one's the men's bathroom or the women's bathroom. But then the easiest way to like find it is just go like, oh, that's the blue one, okay, that's the male's bathroom, that's the pink one, that's the female's bathroom, and shit like that. It's just stuff like that, experiences like that when you're a kid, that as you grow up you don't realize this, but what you're being told and what you're being taught is blue is the boy color, pink is the girl color. Like, it doesn't take someone sitting you down and brainwashing you with a video, and then with clamps that tear your eyelids open for you to see, for you to be brainwashed. It's just little shit like this. It's just small things in your life that you genuinely did not think was a big deal, because you're like, fuck it, I don't care. Neither of these are my favorite colors anyways. My favorite color is like yellow or whatever, like you might think. I don't know what your favorite color is, right? But that doesn't matter, because what matters is like, well, I don't care, so long as I know where the blue bathroom is, I know where to take a piss. Okay, whatever, doesn't concern me. And then maybe it gets into more like serious shit, right? Where maybe like you're at a playground and you hurt yourself and you're like crying, and you teacher's telling you to shut up or whatever. Like, someone adult's gonna be like, hey, don't cry, it's okay, it's fine, don't worry about it. Like, don't, like, you hurt yourself, it's whatever. Men, don't cry, or at least like try very hard not to cry now, or like shut up as soon as possible, because you're a boy and boys shouldn't be crying that much. And you don't really think about the whole like, oh, because you're a boy and you shouldn't do that. You just kind of think, okay, well, I shouldn't cry because it's causing like a disturbance, maybe. Or you're thinking like, okay, well, like, I've seen all the other boys when they get hurt, maybe they cry, but not that much. They'll cry a little bit and then they'll just shut up. They'll try their best to immediately just hold it in and just stop. And you go, okay, I guess I'll do that, because I don't want to be socially ostracized. That shit is terrifying. The last thing you want to do is, as like a kid in general, but like especially as a dude, is like you don't want to be ostracized. So you don't do that. You're following what other people are doing. That makes sense. That's how we learn, right? If you are one who likes to fall, because I personally don't really enjoy that line of argumentation, but if you really want to justify it through the whole like, oh, evolution like way, then you can kind of think like, oh, okay, well, it makes sense that we follow other people and what they do because that helps our survival or whatever. I personally, I feel like there's not, I feel like the explanatory power of things like that are a little overrated, but whatever, right? That's beside the point. I think that serves just fine enough here. And then sooner or later, you see all the boys are like, me and the boys, we're huddled up together. And all the girls are huddled up together. And you're like, well, I'm a boy. I guess I'm going to hang out with the boys, right? You go into the boy circle. And then they're all like playing fucking Pokemon cards or something. I don't know what they're doing. What are they doing nowadays? Maybe they got their iPad out nowadays, but that's a whole separate issue, right? Okay, where I'm assuming you didn't grow up with like iPads everywhere. Okay, that's what I'm assuming. If you did, then I guess you can just apply it to your contemporary lens. But the point still stands, right? Oh shit, these are the boy toys. The boy toys. That's a terrible way of phrasing. Sorry. Excuse me. These are the things that guys play with. Oh, I love Beyblades. Oh, these like action figures, whatever. The girls play with the Barbie dolls and like the houses or whatever. I don't like, you know, maybe you're not a fan of that. Not because of, and you don't think it's because of patriarchy or whatever, like, you know, it's the system and they're brainwashing. You don't think that. You just kind of like, no, I'm just not fucking with the Barbie dolls. And that's completely fine. You can choose not to be fucking with the Barbie dolls as a dude, right? And then go like, oh, well, I guess I'm fucking with these. I'm fucking with the Bakugans. I love those. You throw the little balls, you know, you have like a card and then you throw them and it latches onto the card because it's magnetic, and then it's the monster like springs out. You're like, holy shit, that's cool. And you see other boys playing that. You go, oh shit, I want to get that. You go home to, you know, the adults and you ask them, hey, I want to go get the toys that the other boys are playing. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to be socially ostracized. You don't say that, but you know, you're implying as such. I don't want to be socially ostracized. You're like, I want to be with the cool kids, or I want to be with the boys. So you know, they take you to, maybe they do. Maybe they take you to the store, and you want to go pick up you want to pick out your cool toys. Oh, but how do you know where the toys are? Oh, don't worry. You walk in, there's like, in the toy section, there's the bright pink girls section with like the nice smelling perfume or whatever, and then they've got the dolls and they got the doll houses, and they've got like the I don't know what the fuck do girls play with. I don't know. I wasn't at the, I'm gonna tell you right now, I wasn't in the girls aisles. I was in the boys aisles. I was looking for the Beyblades. That's what I was doing, right? So I'm charging it. I'm like, oh, okay, here's the boy aisles. Perfect. Here's where I can look for my stuff. I see like monster trucks. I see like Hot Wheels. You see like fucking robots. You see like, I don't know what else is like a masculine toy. I don't know. But you get the idea, right? Like, you're just going in and you're not thinking, wow, these social norms are enforced on me. You're not thinking that shit. You're just going like, I'm looking for the toys that I can play with my friends. How against it, magnetic cards? That's, the cards are magnetic. That's how they, like, when you throw the Bakugans down, they will pop out. That's how that works, right? Anyways. You're not thinking about it. You're beelining straight to the thing. You're getting your toy and you're getting out. And then as you grow older, you don't go to the little boy section. You go to the cool, like, the I don't know, like the video game section for dudes or whatever. But you get my point, right? One of the most interesting things, and I speak of this from the stance of a philosophy major, I suppose. One of the most interesting things about this, whatever this is, you can call it patriarchy if you want, but if you don't like the word, because, you know, I understand why you wouldn't like the word. If you don't like the word, just call it like gender norms, or maybe like just like, it's difficult because that involves woke words. I'm trying to use non-woke words to this, right? The whole process is a very subtle and implied way of telling you how to act, of telling you what you should be like. And then there's not so subtle things like when, you know, the adults in your life go, okay, it's time to be a man. You shouldn't do that. You're not allowed to cry because you're a guy. And guys don't cry. Girls cry. Are you a girl? You're not a girl. You're not a girl, are you? Exactly. So don't cry. You know, there's just shit like that. And you're just trying to get by. Like, you're just fucking, you're not thinking about the consequences of this on wider society. You're thinking, okay, I gotta get back home as soon as possible so I can catch that new episode of Pokemon. Like, that's what you're thinking. And over time, this implied norm is established and grown in you. Do you see where this is headed? Here's probably maybe the first thing that's a little difficult to swallow, or to accept, right? Maybe, but maybe not. You're on a VTuber stream. You're on a male VTuber stream, so you're probably, you know, you're definitely secure enough about your own self to some extent to be watching me talk about this shit, right? But maybe something that's a bit harder to swallow is like the whole like, oh, guys are a certain way and girls are a certain way is pretty largely socialized. It's pretty largely constructed. This shit is not like natural. It's not like, oh, all men are this and it's always been this way and it will forever be this way and this is just in our genetics or whatever. Okay, that's probably the first kind of difficult thing to completely swallow, is like most of this shit is engineered socially. From the small things like that in the way you interact with the world. And this is not to say, oh, you've been brainwashed, you're a victim, because, you know, we don't want that. We don't want to feel like we're not in control or whatever, which I understand again as well. And those words are not helpful. To me, it's maybe it'll help you rationalize it this way. This is just the way humans are. But the moment you figure this out, you're already a step of this. The moment you're like, oh, okay, this shit is not natural. This is like socially constructed and enforced through certain other means. The moment you figure this shit out, you can immediately go like, well, okay, well then I can change. I don't have to be exactly the way I've been told I should be by other men necessarily because of a biology or whatever the fuck. I can do things of my own accord. Like, yeah, you're probably searching for financial freedom. And I don't blame you. Like, have you seen this economy? It's fucked. It's fucked up, man. Rent is how much? I have to pay bills? I'm being taxed how much? I don't even have a job yet. What the fuck? You know, like, I get that. I understand that completely. You're thinking, but only really thinking about your financial freedom, that you haven't, maybe you just haven't really thought much about your freedom of thought. This shit is not like, you know, natural and the way it is. A good way to summarize this idea is, and again, I have to use the P word, I'm sorry, but like, just bear with me, dude, okay? Like, I'm using the P word here, right? Patriarchy's greatest strength is its invisibility. It is so powerful because part of what makes it that way is that it's invisible. You don't see it. It's not like obvious. It's not like, oh, it's not like women are on the streets being, okay, well, hopefully, right, in most circumstances, the less extreme circumstances, right, in the less extreme circumstances, hopefully, you're not going around seeing women getting beat up on the streets by like men. That's just not happening. Like, it's because if that was, you'd be like, oh fuck, what the hell, what's going on? It's like a thing, you know. Part of patriarchy's greatest strength is that this shit is hard to see. It's invisible. It's hard to detect. But it is a very subtle way of enforcing and shaping the way you think, and the way we think, we all think. And one of the greatest, most powerful moves you can make right now is to recognize this. Is to recognize, oh, I'm being told how to be a man by people who, I'm going to be honest, between me and you can trust me maybe as the philosophy major in this, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about, okay? Or they do know what they're talking about, but they have a stake in this. They want things to be this way because it benefits them. Not because it benefits you. Nobody gives a fuck about you, right? We've established that. It's the male loneliness epidemic. Nobody gives a fuck about you. No one cares about you. So, if you think about it that way, why the hell would this pre-established norm be worth you defending it? You know, why spend so much energy going like, oh, you know, but that's, you know, this is, men are supposed to do this or men are supposed to do that. Fuck that. Maybe something that's maybe a little easier to digest from this sentiment could be also like the idea that some countries have it so that only men serve in the army. No! If you're a dude, you know, hopefully you see what I'm going at, where I'm going with this. Women should serve too. They should be on the front lines as well. If I have to fucking, cause like, you know, we can both hold a gun. You're a dude, right? You're a dude. You're looking at a woman. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe biologically there are certain things that are different. Oh, maybe women are less suited for combat, whatever. Even if you accept all of these things, right? Both of you motherfuckers can hold a gun. And whoever holds the gun and fires the shot kills the other guy. That kills the other person. There's no like, oh, but women are like weaker and they can carry less. Because yes, you can accept all of those things and still be like, well, yeah, but they should ultimately bear the responsibility of committing war crimes just as much as I do if I have to bear that in the first place. Now, the problem that you encounter with this line of thought may be that some men are convinced that no, actually women shouldn't be in the army either because women are frail and they should be protected or whatever. And we as the men, we have that role of protecting. And to that I say, or to that I ask, who told you that? You know, why is that the case? You can't, and are you going to be like, oh, because historically that's always been the case, that's what's always happened? Because that's not an explanation for why it should continue. You're just pointing out that that's how it's always been, or how it's been according to your very, very, you know, cherry-picked example of history and context, without evaluating the bigger picture and all the nuances that come with that. Fine by me, don't want to be in the military, especially with Cheetos. Fuck that, no. If I gotta be in the front lines out there, you do too. Unless, like, you actually have, like, a physical impairment or condition. In which case, alright, okay, you can chill in the office, right? And do, like, the paperwork or whatever. But if, like, my philosophy major ass with my delicate fucking fingers has to be on the battlefield just cause I'm a dude, then like, nah, that ain't right. Equal rights, equal fights. No, sorry. We're getting a bit off track and I'm being a little unserious, right? Let's get back to a bit more serious term. That's how it's always been is not an explanation for why it should continue to be. I feel like that's easy to grasp. And I think requires no further explanation. But maybe let me put it this way. If you believe that, you know, if whatever has always been the case should just continue to be that, surely you don't think that just because you've been alone for all these years means you deserve to be alone for all the future to come. Surely you don't believe that. And if you do believe that, you're fucking wrong. Sorry. If you don't believe that, or if you do believe that just because you've been alone all your life means you have to be alone for the future, I have to respectfully be like, you have given up. You've just given up. You looked at that and you're like, no, fuck that, I can't win, it's over. You FF'd at 20, except instead of 20 minutes, you FF'd at 20 years old. like 30 or 40. If you have like a week, you could do a lot of good in a week. Not to mention, you know, 10s, 20s, or 30s of years, 30 odd years or whatever. And lastly, if that doesn't work either, let me present to you the philosophical perspective. That's not really a philosophical one, but it's like, you know, actually it kind of is a philosophical perspective. Do you know of the Copernican turn? History's most famous and well-known paradigm shift, probably. It's the idea that, essentially, right? Back then, people used to think that the sun revolves around the earth. And now we know that that's not the case. Now we know that the earth revolves around the sun in this, and we no longer subscribe to, I think heliocentrism is the idea that we're at the center, right? We are not the center of the world. Like literally we are not at the center. The heliocentrism, dude. That guy, yeah. Exactly. Do you think a lot of those people were... How do you, like... Just kind of imagine... Put yourself in those shoes for a second and think like, oh, wow. This insane guy with the telescope is going like, guys, no, I've done the math in my office, in my like room, and it says that like it makes no sense if if the sun revolved around us. Actually, that we revolve around the sun. Like, that guy's a fucking psycho. What? You can imagine it's probably hard to accept that when you were the first to hear it. But now, you're like, well, yeah, of course. Those people were fucking stupid. They don't know what they were talking about. Of course the earth revolves around the sun. In the same vein, we are at the dawn of another potential paradigm shift, and that is the recognition of, in my opinion at least, and this can be debated, sure, because it's less an astronomical one and more like a social one, but the social paradigm of like men having to be a certain way and women having to be a certain way. And you can be like, okay, I don't care about the women, but it's like, because we're talking about men here today. Sorry, women. I know it's Women's History Month, but I already did, like, we're not talking about that anymore. Even if you don't care about the women, you at least have to think, okay, but like, you know, they're telling me what to do as a guy, and that's kind of bullshit. Now, once we've gotten these kind of bigger things out of the way, because these are the bigger things away, that are kind of like the core of this. So hopefully, you know, if you have heard me speak on everything just now, you would probably, and you're nodding your head, you haven't clicked off, right? You'll probably buy what I have to sell you next. Like, the toughest part of things to swallow was probably what I just said just now. But if you've made it past this point, you are probably good to go for the rest of this. Actually, you know what? I'll be right back. Give me about 2 minutes. And I will talk about... Okay, but I'm not a misogynist. How is this relevant to me, right? If you're like, you know, a good dude. Okay, so just give me a moment. not to be that guy, but Copernicus didn't found heliocentric systems passed down, built upon in secret by generations. Yeah, absolutely. But we kind of have to, we name it after him because, you know, we name things after the first person, but also because it's easier to subscribe to great man theory. You know, the idea that like most stuff happens with one person. It just takes one great man to change everything. And that's, you know, it's obviously bullshit. Or okay, it's not obvious that it's bullshit actually. There's like a whole debate to be had about it. But I think it's bullshit, I suppose, is the way I'll put it. Nonetheless, one of the reasons why it's so like we're engrossed in the idea of the great man theory so much is because it's just easier. Because instead of, oh, like all these people, instead of crediting one guy at the end, instead of crediting like a whole team of like 20, 30, 40 people who helped with this, and then like, you know, thanking the person who baked the bread that they ate that morning, you know, why don't we just thank that one person who put the ink on the paper? You know, why don't we just thank that guy? Why don't we just credit that guy? Wouldn't it just make everything easier? And having to, excuse me, that was my chair. Sorry. And having to delve into the nuance of like, okay, this person did this, and this other person did this, and this other person helped, and then this other person helped bake their bread, and this other person, you know, was farming the fields that produced the wheat for this bread. Like, you know, there's so much. Not the wheat, but you know, like, you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the wheat. Like, okay. That's impractical. You know, there's a huge draw for great man theory, and that's why I don't think it's a foregone debate. I think it's a worthy debate to have, but I personally don't subscribe to it. That's just me. Anyways, back on topic, right? At this point, and also just in general, if you're on this channel and if you're a dude, especially if you're a straight dude, you're probably pretty chill with everything I just said. If not, you're kind of like, well, you know, it's an issue, I guess, but I don't want to think too hard about it, or I don't want to talk about it because it's controversial. But you're probably, or at least there's some part of you, maybe, if you don't care a lot about this right now, could partially be because, or you don't want to talk about it or engage with it too much, is because you don't want to talk about politics. If you see this as politics. Some people don't, some people do. Some people put gender issues, or like, you know, men's issues, whatever, as political discourse. Some people like to put it in social discourse. Some people think it's just discourse in general. Some people don't think it's any discourse. But like the long and short of it is, maybe you're like, oh, this is getting a bit too political for me. I don't want to talk about it. The word is not political. I think that's very key. When you say, I want to stay out of politics, that is a relatively meaningless sentence if you actually think about it for more than like 10 seconds, right? Because everything is political. And I don't mean like, you know, in the sense that everything is philosophy or whatever, like, you know, it's all actually the same thing, and I'm using my philosophy major degree as trying to like pull all the strings together to justify why I did it. But no, but I really mean, when I say everything is political, I mean like what I suspect you are trying to say when one says, oh, I don't want to get into politics, is because you don't want to get into relatively controversial worldly issues that you don't feel comfortable having an opinion in because you're not very informed about it. That is fine. For example, like you and I, unless this is whatever we actually specialize in, or we have first-hand experience, or we like, you know, really have spent the time diving into it, shouldn't have to comment or have a strong opinion on everything that like the president does or something. You know, like nothing. You and I should not have to, unless that's literally our job, right? Like, you shouldn't have to bear. You shouldn't have to bear an opinion on everything that's going on around the world, especially if you are uninformed and you're being forced to feel like you have to virtue signal and pander just to say, oh yeah, of course, thing bad, yes, yeah, I'm in support, but you know, in reality, you don't really care or you don't really understand it. And I think that that really extends a lot of times into, as you and I, as like a dude, again, if I'm talking to a dude, I'm talking to you and you're a dude here, this is my assumption. You're probably not like a feminist, but you probably have some idea, or maybe let me put it this way. If someone asks if you're a feminist, your response is to say yeah, if, you know, they're a woman that is like, you know, in a position that you're not very comfortable or familiar with. Your response is, yeah, okay, I believe in equality and I think equality good. You know, that's probably what you say. But if your friends ask you, hey, are you a feminist? You're probably gonna be like, I mean, I guess. You're gonna probably be like, you know, yeah, women good. And then you're gonna make a joke about like, I can name 100 women, or etc., etc. And it's not something, you know, you kind of take too seriously. It's just kind of. But when someone asks, you're like, yes, you know, equality. And, you know, permit me to make an assumption about you. You're probably not like a woman abuser. Like you probably don't hate women. You're probably not, you know, trying to attack them violently at any point in time. Probably, right? I want to hope that's the case. So you're, you know, relatively speaking, you're probably a pretty good dude. You're probably just a pretty good dude already. But maybe, and I guess we go back into the gray territory, maybe you have certain assumptions about women because you're like, maybe due to your experience or due to the way you've been taught, you're like, oh yeah, no, women do this, or women want this, or women are a certain way, or women are another way. In the same way that, you know, as I've described just now, oh, boys want these things, guys want these things, men won't do these things. And maybe you're like, oh yeah, also gay people exist or whatever, but, you know, you don't really care because you're just, you know, if you're a dude, you're a dude, right? Is the thinking. I want to take a moment to think about the dudes that are kind of just normal dudes, okay? Who are like, well, I don't know, I don't have any stake in this, is what you're thinking. And, you know, as long as I'm not perpetuating awful shit, then I'm good, right? But remember, and maybe think about it this way. It's less that I'm trying to, like, fix you or whatever. That's not, like, my intent. I don't think there's anything wrong with you or whatever that should be adjusted and fixed. But it's more that we need to work together on this fucking problem. Okay, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm proposing. Is I'm sitting you down and I'm going like, we need to make sure we're all on the same page and we're all getting it right. So the boys growing up don't have to deal with all this bullshit. Here's one of the ways you do that. Here's one of the ways we can do that. Okay. Not only do you have to just be kind of aware of what's going on, of patriarchy, or whatever you want to call it, of the way things are in the world that enforce being a man. Not only do you have to be aware, kind of, that's like, oh, people made that shit up. But maybe, and you don't have to do it, but I'm asking nicely. Maybe you can just spare some time to challenge those notions. And I don't mean challenge it as in, like, you know, put yourself in a debate and argument with someone else. No. But just, you know, why don't you be a bit of a contrarian even? Just try it. It'll be pretty fun. Someone's like, oh, you can't do that because you're like a dude. You're like, oh yeah, well, fuck, oh yeah, okay, I see how it is. And you just, you know, you just do it. Can't put on like an earring because you're a dude. No, fuck that. I'm gonna put on an earring. I'm gonna look fucking good. Can't use a certain color because you're a dude. Again, you're like, you know, okay, I'm gonna challenge you on that. I can still be a guy, and I'm not telling you to, you know, not be a guy or whatever. No, you can still be a man, just not in the way that a lot of men are trying to tell you to do. Because why the fuck listen to them? Why listen to them? Why listen to me, in fact? You shouldn't even be doing what I'm telling you to do. But you should think for yourself on what you want. And not just operate on the implicit biases that have taken over your like soul. Like, be able to identify where it is in your brain that you're like, oh shit, I'm just thinking this because I've been told to do that. And as long as you're doing those things little by little, not only is that, you know, helping you into becoming a more interesting person, hopefully, but it's also allowing the kids growing up, who really, I think you and I agree, are probably the most important thing to worry about right now, is the fucked up state of this world. The kids growing up right now, that we could make sure they're on a better path. That they don't have to suffer like you and I did. Doesn't that sound pretty cool? And it's just like little shit like that, right? But even, and maybe here's the thing, or maybe here's a bigger thing you can do as well. Now that's like level 1, right? Okay, level 2, or maybe level 3. Maybe we're skipping like 5 levels onto this because this is pretty tough, right? If you're like a dude, spend some time getting real. And when you get real, talk about these things, you know? You know that, like, you know the vibe? That's like it's post gaming session with the boys. You're on the Discord call. And you know, you guys are way too tired to queue into another game or whatever. And it's like 4 a.m. But you're just chilling because you don't want to go to sleep yet, right? You're kind of just like talking. You're just like sharing, maybe you're sharing funny videos and you're like, you know, shooting the shit. You like just talk about how you feel about something. Just bring it up. Or maybe just bring up like how, oh, okay, I really need to talk about this one thing that's bothering me. Then you just talk about it. And you and the boys can like have a laugh or whatever. But just, you know, be open to being vulnerable, I suppose. But you know, don't do that all at once. Don't, you know, walk up to someone and start trauma dumping on them. That's not what I mean. I mean just like in a space where you are talking about deeper shit. You're having a real conversation, you know what I mean? Be real with yourself and talk about yourself. And be open and honest about things you're struggling with. And maybe more importantly, when you recognize and see that someone else is doing that, maybe for the first time, or they're not very comfortable with, it seems like they're not very comfortable with talking about it, encourage them. Tell them, hey man, like, I get it. Don't worry, you're doing a good job. Or, I understand where you're coming from. Or, yeah, for real, me for real. Like just very simple, encouraging, validating words. Because I think the biggest thing with the male loneliness epidemic, or why we sort of, as men, struggle with this a lot, is we are not very honest with ourselves. Because we do not want to know what it's like to get hurt again. And I want to tell you that that's fear. I want to tell you that that is not, that's, you know, that's a decision informed by pain. To not open up again, to not speak about yourself, to not be vulnerable around other people. That's informed by something. That's not, you didn't just develop that because you're a dude or whatever. No, you developed that because every time you got hurt, the cold, uncaring world around you was like, well, man the fuck up, throw some balls, and then just don't feel about it. Don't think about it. And part of the way you can help yourself get out of that is also by helping other people get out of it as well. Accepting what is due to fear is not peaceful, it's resignation. That's not, I'm not saying, you know, oh, just accept that, you know, this came out of fear and that's it. That's resignation. I'm not done yet. What I'm saying is recognize that this shit is informed by fear and by past bad experiences you've had. And overcome that fear, you know, fight through that if you want to put it in manlier words, right? Fight the insecurity. Fight the fear of being vulnerable. Maybe if I put it this way, it really does take balls to talk about yourself so openly in a way without fear, or maybe in spite of the fear of being ostracized, of being chastised, of having your opinions and your feelings rejected by people. Real cojones to do that, right? If you, again, that's if you really want to cling on to the masculine ideal of doing things. Because, you know, I recognize that that's probably a little easier than just telling you to drop everything. Because your paradigm has to shift. And even if you know that, that's not exactly an easy way. It's not like, that's not enough to just easily achieve that. Years and years of unlearning, or unlearning years and years of learning, and then learning something new again is fucking difficult. And more importantly, why do that when everything's working out for me so far? I don't need to do that. Everything's good. You can be a better person. You can be a greater man. You can be a greater person. While also allowing this world to cultivate greater people. These things can happen. Not just that they can happen as like an inspiration of hope, but they can happen at the same time, and they can help each other. You ever heard about that, like, phenomenon? And again, you can think of it as, you know, we're just shooting the shit, right? You ever think about, like, how some dudes are, like, purposeless in life, they don't really know what to do, and they have a kid, and all of a sudden they're like, yes, this is my life purpose. It's a bit like that. It's the whole realizing that you're not just living for yourself, because it's like, you know, maybe you're just a simple person to please. Maybe you're just kind of like, I don't know, I want a stable income, I want a girlfriend, I want to eat food, good food now and then. I want to go on like trips to Japan now and then and watch anime and then do my job and then do well. Don't even have to be like, you know, promoted to a super high part of the ladder. Maybe you're just chilling as a dude, right? But just the act, or just being able to think further than yourself, to think beyond yourself, to live for someone else for that purpose, right? That gives you a sense of drive and a sense of importance greater than yourself. That what you're doing means something. And that doesn't have to be your own kid. It can be a kid, but like that can just be people around you. In helping them, you can also help yourself. And that shit is pretty cool. The thing I want to end on, and I'm going to end it because, you know, I want it to be a relatively short stream where I'm just talking. Here's the thing I want to end on. The thing I want to end on is, yes, again, and I want to go back to it. The male loneliness epidemic is pretty real. And it's paramount that we recognize what's going on. And part of the reason why it feels like even lonelier than usual, and what part of what may drive you away from like understanding it from a feminist lens, for example, or a patriarchal lens, or just even like trying to think about women's issues, is because, you know, I'm a dude and I'm suffering. I'm alone. And nobody wants to talk to me. Frankly, at this point, right now, in my opinion, we as a collective whole have not been able to deal with both men's and women's issues. But at least it feels as though someone out there, or a lot of people out there, a good amount of people out there, and we are taught to do this too now, sort of, to be aware and to talk about women's issues. And that's great that we're doing that. But no one gives a fuck about men's issues. It seems that way, at least. It seems as though the only people who truly care about men's issues are the ones who, you know, then stand to profit from trying to sell you a course or how to be an alpha male or a guide or whatever. In general, as long as you quote unquote make it, you don't want to think about it too hard. It's a difficult thing to untangle. And I wanted to spend today's time talking about that. I want to spend today's time talking about how, no, this shit is pretty real and alive. And because no one really wants to talk about it, I guess I have to fucking talk about it. Well, not only that, but also the fact that I care about it, right? I need to show by action, and that action is, I guess, you know, doing today's stream, that I care about men's issues enough to really talk about them. Because it's one thing to say like, oh yeah, men do kind of have some issues, and then just brush it off aside and like, you know, not confront it, because it's easier to just ignore it. It would be so much easier. This is gonna tank my viewership, probably. Me doing this stream is probably not going to help my numbers at all than if I just did another stream talking about feminist issues. That'd be so, or like, you know, women's issues in feminism. Because, you know, There are men's issues in feminism too, but that's a much harder topic to talk about as well. Like, I could just forever farm off of that as a male VTuber. It'd be so easy. But I'm not here to do the easy thing. And I hope after today's stream, hopefully, if you're a dude right now listening, which is relatively unlikely, but not impossible at all, I hope that you listening to this feel inspired to do the same. You can feel inspired to not just, take the easy way out. Just be like, oh, just, find your group of your group of friends and a circle of friends or like a girlfriend, and then just like just step out of this and don't like not engage with this. No, you should fucking engage with this. Why? Because it's a greater part. It's a greater thing to work on that also helps you. Like, it does. I am not free from like the grasps of patriarchy either, just because I have like, a somewhat in-depth somewhat understanding of what's going on. I'll catch myself, from time to time thinking certain things. Like how, oh, I don't know if that would fit me, because it's like, because in my head I'm like, and the unspoken part, right? Well, it's all unspoken, it's in my head. Because then I'm thinking like, oh, it's too girly. Like, I don't think it would work for me. And like, that is like, maybe that's true. Maybe it does, or maybe it's true in that it won't work for me in a particular style I'm trying to go for. But why? But I always have to catch myself. Oh, why am I thinking that? Why do I think this thing's too girly for me? What does that mean? What does it mean that it's girly? Is that a problem that is girly? Like, what? Wait, what's going on? I catch myself thinking that shit sometimes as well. I'm not like free from it. I certainly hope that being aware of it enough and being conscious of these issues has made it so that I rarely, for example, talk when I'm talking with someone else or when I'm trying to make a point, make these mistakes. But sometimes, again, when I'm with myself and I'm just chilling, I'll catch myself in a mistake. Here's the last. Okay, I said here's the last thing, but here's the thing. Here's one of the things that someone mentioned that I should talk about now, because it's probably near the end of everything else I want to say. Someone mentioned incel, the word incel. How, like, there are a lot of people who are incels who don't even want to identify as that. That is totally relevant to this discussion, because this discussion is on the male loneliness epidemic. The word incel has been, screwed over to no end. But what it originally meant, or what it was supposed to mean, and I think it was a term invented actually when it was invented, it was used to describe women, but then now we associate the word with men, which is funny. And the thing is, the definition itself doesn't specify which, because all it is it's a portmanteau. It's a portmanteau, so that's a combination of two words of involuntary celibate or involuntary celibacy or whatever. So celibacy in the sense that you're not engaging with, like, is it like romantic or sexual interaction with people? And involuntary being like, you're not engaging with it because you want to, or because there's a religious reason, or because like that's who you are. You're not, because you are failing to be able to find this. You can't. That's the whole idea of incel. And I think it was originally for women the term was used for in its conception, but then it quickly became adopted as a use case for men as well. And then it got weaponized, and now it's like now it's kind of derogatory, but like, the term involuntary celibacy itself is not necessarily something that's like it's not something to demonize someone for. It's not something to devalue someone for. But anyways, part of the loneliness that people are feeling is because of these, or because of these things. Such as being an incel. But we don't want to use that word because it has terrible connotations and it doesn't really work. Because nowadays, when we think of incel, we think of someone who is a misogynist, who's like a gross basement dwelling sack of shit that needs to take a shower and hasn't more like gymmed yet. And you and I, as dudes, what probably much more well-adjusted dudes, are thinking like, you know, I'm not that guy. At least I'm not that fucking guy. Like, I don't hate women that much, and I'm pretty well-adjusted in my worldviews as well, so why do I have to think about them? You don't have to. There is no responsibility, and this is, I suppose, my ending thing now. There is no responsibility for you to hear my words today and change the way you act, or like, you know, to be more receptive and to be more embracing of people who come from alternate perspectives that are probably more difficult to manage. Again, we're all just trying to make it out here, right? I understand that. I'm not compelling you to do something in the sense that like, you should do this or else the world will end necessarily. Or like you have a moral obligation as a man to talk to other men. I don't think that's, I don't want to say that. I don't think it's helpful, and nor do I think it's true to say that men have an obligation to talk to other men necessarily just because they are men. That they should talk to incel men, or they should talk to men who are degenerates and buy into the whole alpha, omega, gamma. I don't know what it's like a beta like idea of men. That's just a whole mistake. What a cosmological, not cosmological. Sorry. What a faded mistake. What an interesting like. It's a blip in history. That's like the dude that tried to use the words like alpha and beta and like to describe wolf packs, and then immediately coming out afterwards like, hey, my sigma, yeah, exactly, hey, my research is actually fucked, it's wrong, like it makes no sense, and then it's too late. Nope, this is such a great idea that we've been able to run away with. What a mistake that was. But anyways, sorry, that's besides the point. I'm asking you as probably because you're watching like a male VTuber stream, you have to be probably like, you're probably not too deep in the, like, you couldn't possibly be too deep into the toxic masculinity pool, for sure. You're probably a pretty well-adjusted normal dude, like you know, like I like to think that I am. And we're just kind of talking about it from an arm's length, right? The last thing I want to ask you is, or to present you, is this. You don't have the responsibility to step up, or like to go above and beyond and offer sympathy to the incel types, you know, to offer sympathy to the fucking the dirtbag assholes who just hate women. Like, you don't have to do that, because honestly, it's probably less of a headache to do that. Like, you know, fuck having to deal with that. Fuck having to deal with that. That's so annoying. That's some asinine bullshit. As long as you and I, we're regular dudes who don't hate women, then it should be okay, right? Well, I'm not gonna hold you to it morally, okay? I'm not gonna hold you to it, a moral account. You must do certain things. But I will say this. If you and I don't do this shit, who will? I think there is a nobility, a heroism, a courage, a valor, maybe even a beauty in us as men being able to, as men who are not suffering from these issues too much, right? Or at least as men who are not directly involved in this, to offer our help and sympathy to those who are. Because what are you, like, we can't expect like the women to do it, can we? We can't expect it to always work, or at least we can't expect it to work without help, if you want to think of it that way, right? You also can't expect the fucking schools to do it well, because the schools are terrible and they're garbage for one reason or another. I think maybe you and we will disagree necessarily on why, maybe on why schools are bad, but we can kind of agree that they're insufficient, right? At least in dealing with these issues, which is why they pop up in the first place. We can blame technology, we can blame AI, we can blame the men themselves, whatever. We can do a bunch of things to blame and shift blame and responsibility, but who the fuck is gonna step up and man the fuck up and deal with these issues as men? You and I are probably. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Okay, I don't know if you are, but I'm trying to. You see what I mean? You see that I'm trying to, but it's kind of hard. And I think I would really appreciate it if you helped me as well. I would. And it doesn't have to be drastic and super big. It can just be small shit. And then it can go into your deeper 4 a.m. Discord conversations. Just talking about this stuff is so helpful. Just chatting about it, right? But to remember at the end of the day, it's about, you know, and you're free to do that. You can think about it for you, and also for your purpose and meaningfulness in life when you find a way to live beyond yourself. When you find a way to do things not just for yourself, but for other people as well. It's a powerful feeling. It's a powerful feeling that guides you and makes you feel as though your actions are meaningful and that you mean something to the community, to society, because you do, or at least you have the capacity to. Maybe you think you don't yet, you aren't right now, and maybe you really aren't. Maybe you are right now kind of just a leech on society and you're not really helping. Maybe, but that doesn't mean you have to be that way forever. I don't know. But this shit just doesn't just happen overnight. It does require you to be the bravest and strongest version of yourself, I think, as a man. And that takes time to grind and practice. But it's not just going to the gym, although you can do that, and there's no harm in that in itself. But it's also sharpening your mind. And I don't mean sharpening it as in, like, you know, your sophistry in your arguments. I mean, like, being able to look inwards into yourself and ask the toughest, the most difficult questions you've ever asked yourself, and to be able to come out of it on top. Or bottom, if that's what you prefer, but sorry. Yeah. I would end with a quote, maybe if this were a bit more formal. You know, maybe from The Will to Change, or maybe like something that poignantly captures the point. But instead, maybe I'm just gonna end with like this, right? Being able to talk about, deal with, and subsequently maybe even fight the most difficult parts of men's issues is, objectively speaking, the manliest thing you can do. Recognizing that the way you're being taught how to be a man is not natural, and that you have the freedom to define who you are as a person, and embracing that fear and that uncertainty and that anxiety and that possibility, and forging yourself as a new and a great human. That's the manliest shit you can do. It is. We could end the stream watching the funny morning routine video. No, don't do that. But yeah, that's what I'll end on. This is short. I've tried to keep it as short as possible. I've tried to be a bit serious. I want to thank people who have joined me today live to, like, you know, hear this out. I'm sorry I didn't respond to everyone's comments. I know you're here and I'm reading everything, okay? I know each and every person who's here. And I didn't respond to every comment, but that's, you know. I was really trying hard to focus on what I had to say. I obviously have more things to say about these issues, but for now, those are the main points. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me in a comment or tweet at me. And if you think I'm wrong, then I implore you to maybe rewatch it again and then look inwards again into your own soul and ask yourself, okay, why do I feel that way? Is it because, you know, is it because there truly is a flaw in what this guy's saying? Or maybe like this guy's, maybe you suspect then like, oh, this guy's not coming from a perspective. Maybe he's trying to pander to like a virtue, whatever that you may be thinking. And then ask yourself, okay, but why did he do it at all? I'll tell you why I did it, motherfucker. I did it because there's enough dog shit human beings in the world, and I'm so tired of the factory that keeps producing more of them. I'm here to try to fight that factory. That's what I'm doing. And you don't have to feel obligated to help me, but I would certainly appreciate it if you did. Well, how do you help me? Not by big things, just small things. Just being open, talking about yourself, being secure in what you fear and like what has informed you of your past and like the certain ways that you behave and act. Being open to your emotions, the wide range of emotions that you can, and talking about them as well, putting it on your sleeve, being an authentic and genuine person. It's pretty cool. Any reading recommendation to help internalizing the topics? It really is will to change. I'm sorry. That's like the biggest, it's the easiest thing. That's really like, that shit I think does capture so much of it. And part of the reason why I struggle to think of it, like a lot of it, a lot more that's like easier to read, that's not just purely academic jumble. Because I understand that it's hard to read academic jumble. There's not a lot out there that do talk about this, which is why I'm talking about it. Like, I'm part of the reason I'm talking about this because like nobody's fucking talking about it in a way that is meaningful and helpful, and also not too like academic. Because I think we have a good amount of like academic endeavor and work into it, but that shit is a little difficult to parse through if you're just some guy, right? So hopefully today's conversation is easy enough to understand and follow. And I didn't say anything that's too complicated. That's my hope. But really, if you wanted to read further into it, my first suggestion would be Bell Hooks' The Will to Change. Or, you know, that's the book. The name is The Will to Change, the book, and the name of the author is Bell Hooks. At least that's her pen name, but you know. I recommend FD Signifier's videos and check them out. I think it does a really good job talking about this stuff in a way that's also digestible and easy. Because that's the goal. I'm not trying to, you know, back it up with like intense, heavy, like academic research and statistics. Like, you don't need to be convinced by the stats. You want this shit to hit you in the soul. Like, you want to resonate with it personally, right? I get that. And that's why I'm trying to say, like, you know, or rather, that's why I tried my best to veer away from that stuff. That's a bit too like jargony, academic, and serious. Or not serious, but formal. Yeah, like this is still serious, but it's informal, right? This is like, I wanted the vibe of today's stream to be like a, you know, the 5 a.m. Discord call. That's kind of what I want it to feel like. if you've done all that right correctly, you know, if you've arrived, if you have followed everything I said so far and you've just kind of internalized that all, you might be put into the situation where you're thinking, okay, damn, well, I really am in this bitch. Like, I am here in the world. I exist, and, you know, the world sucks. Wow. It feels like it's just me against it. And it feels like every bit of change I do is not really enough. Because it's so fucking hard to feel like you're really making a change in the world. And you know what? Sometimes it does feel like I'm pushing a rock up a hill just for it to fall down again. Like, what am I doing, man? I can't escape the prison that my mind is designed for itself. What the fuck do I do? I turn to Stoicism? What's going on? Do I read Marcus Aurelius? Who do I read? Philosopher VTuber? To get out of this rut? Well, tune in next week and you'll see. That's the, not cliffhanger, but that's the sequel, okay? If you're in the position right now where you're like, okay, I roughly understand that, you know, I was brought up as a man and there's certain things embedded in me and I've been able to rid myself of them, okay? I'm not going to let how other people tell me to behave as a man define me. I'm not going to let that define who I am. Okay, great. Oh, wait a minute. Now that I've done that, what the fuck do I do then? You know? I spent all this time doing what other men have told me to do, or other men and women who've told me to be a man and to be man-like and manly. Now that I realize that's all kind of bullshit, or at least most of it's made up, what do? I'm lost, Karasufanor. I am in an existential crisis and I need your help as a philosopher VTuber. I'm so glad you asked. We're going to deal with that next week. Not today, not tomorrow, because tomorrow we're streaming Wanderstop instead. Can't wait to play Wanderstop. I'm so excited. I'm so happy to play. Oh, sorry. But we're dealing with that shit next week. That's what we're doing. The existential crisis. Tune in to find out more. Chilling with the boys, discussing patriarchy and shit. Hell yeah, brother. 4 a.m. calls are usually about how broke we are and everything blows. Usually ends with coding Fred Durst. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, we are all still broke and everything does fucking suck. Absolutely. Yeah. But hopefully, yeah, again, if you've swallowed everything that I presented, and you're kind of like, yeah, that makes sense, Karis. That makes a lot of sense. And now you feel like you're lost. Now you're like, okay, now I'm really lost. Now I don't know what to do. I just know what not to do, but I don't know what to do exactly. Then you're on the right track. I want to say that's where the next step begins. The next step we're gonna do next time. But that's a little long, and it's not gonna be for this stream. Thank you for giving me the time of day. I said I wanted to be brief, but there were definitely a lot of points today where I just kind of stood there frozen because I lost my train of thought. Because there's just so many things I want to say, and I'm paralyzed by like which things I should say at which time. Can we take a minute to talk about how funny the morning routine video is, though, and how patriarchy is to blame? Ah, you forced my hand. Okay. Next time. We'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll talk about okay. But it is relevant. It is relevant today, you know, the whole like patriarchy. It is relevant to patriarchy. It is kind of like 5 a.m. wake up, do the cold shower, do the thing, and it's like a masculine dude with like he's ripped, he's super toned. He's got like a servant with a towel and shit. Oh my god. The ones that are unironic, the only thing I want to draw attention to is like the question of how much money do you think they were born with? That's the first thing, right? The ones that are ironic are kind of funny. But ultimately, the reason why we can laugh at things that are ironic is because they're making fun of things that already exist, and the fact that those things already do exist, and like the unironic versions of those videos happen, means that someone out there is watching them and going like, oh my god, yeah, this is the way to live as a man. Little advice, right? Important topics in your hand is taking notes to remember. That's what I do. I think that's really good. But the reason I don't do that, because I certainly could, the reason I don't do that is because I want to sharpen my ability to do that, to be able to keep all those topics in my head. Like I am training myself to do that well. And like, I'm a VTuber with 500 subscribers. It doesn't actually matter how good this live stream is more than it does how much better I can get in the future, which is why I don't do the sticky notes or the topics for streaming. If I'm doing some serious shit outside of streaming, then yeah, I do that. I definitely, it's a good point. It's a good idea. Writing stuff down definitely helps. Even if just typing it up in your notes on your phone is good too. Even that, right? But for streaming, I try very hard not to, because like that's exactly that's the muscle I'm like, you know, I'm working on, right? And it's a slow and arduous process, but eventually I'll get better at it. Four minutes above the air and diving into water. Yeah, I've seen. It's funny. It is really funny. The ironic stuff is pretty funny, but it's kind of funny because you can see the ridiculousness and the absurdity of the unironic things, which I don't think. Okay, let me just, before I go, maybe summarize how I feel today's stream would reach, like how it reaches people. I don't think anyone who actually clicks on this video and listens for more than 5 seconds is like an incel, or like someone who's maybe even a guy, honestly. Although I hope it's the case. I feel like most people who are gonna watch this are probably relatively chill people, chill dudes. Or I'm talking about the dudes. I don't know what type of woman would watch this. Actually, I haven't the faintest clue. I certainly don't know what type of NB would watch this. I feel like if you were an NB who was assigned male at birth, maybe you would watch this. Otherwise, this is purely out of like almost academic interest, maybe. I feel like that most of the people who would watch this and kind of vibe with what I said in the first half, at least, are gonna be like just dudes who, they're not misogynists, but they're also not feminists, and they don't really like the word feminism because they don't understand what that is exactly. Because it has a terrible like reputation. Right now it's common for VTubers, and VTuber write down and insert dead space plot too. Yeah, certainly. Again, I just try not to do that, but I'll do that for other purposes. For example, like when I was streaming Three Houses, I had a bunch of notes written down for that. But yeah, the type of person who is not my usual audience who would watch this and kind of get to the end, you are probably like a chill dude, and you probably don't hate women. You just don't quite understand how feminism works, and that's totally fine. It's, you know, it would be a ridiculous thing to assume that you do, because if you do, it's like, great, I'm preaching to the choir. If you are coming in and you actually have done your homework, your feminist homework, everything I've just said is like simple, basic, easy shit. You're like, yeah, we've gone over this. What now, philosopher, VTuber? If you've already done the homework and the reading and all of that. But if you haven't, and I suspect that's most people, it might sound kind of reasonable, but also kind of weird and kind of like inconsequential to you in your life. And so the biggest hurdle, I suppose, for me today was that I was trying to get you to give a shit. Or at least get you to care about it a little more. Or just be aware that there's at least one dude out there who's talking about men's issues. But not in a way that's like, I'm trying to grift and I'm trying to sell you a course or whatever asinine thing they do. I'm just trying to tell you that I care a lot about this stuff because there are a lot of younger men around me that, like, I feel responsible for. And I certainly don't want them to grow up in a fucked up world like this. Rage culture doing damage to understanding the PR for feminism. Feminism's PR is just kind of like off. I just think, like, if you want to sell feminism to women, it's pretty cool. But if you want to sell feminism to men, you gotta name it a completely different thing. You gotta call it meninism, and you gotta just use the exact same points. It's just it's the same thing, but you just call it meninism. And just that alone is going to get people to care a lot more than if you said feminism. Like, I have for years underestimated the importance of branding and the importance of, like, you know, someone hearing a word for the first time going and immediately, like, forming an opinion on it. Like, the first 5 seconds are super important. I've totally underestimated that, and I need to well, figure that out, I guess. Gotta blue wash it. Yeah, just put like a different color. That's what we do. We have to just, to sell it to the men, you kind of have to paint it a different color. I'm not saying you gotta change it. I'm just saying you gotta paint it a different color. Because otherwise, how the fuck do you sell feminism to men, like, unironically? And not in the presence of other women? Because if you're in the presence of other women, it's easy. If you're in the presence of other women, especially when you're in a friend group, you can just kind of, like, talk to the dude and be like, you know, publicly in this, like, in your little circle, be like, are you a feminist? You know, and then immediately, you know, pressure them to be like, yeah, I am a feminist. I love women. Women are great, you know, in front of other women. Like, performatively is what I'm trying to say. But if you're just dudes hanging out in the Discord channel, like, that is kind of a ridiculous question to ask. Unfortunately, it is. I don't like that it is, but it is. But I hope I made it clear enough today that, like, yeah, I've just talked about men. And I only wanted to talk about men for today. This is the men's stream. After that, we can go back to, like, you know, talking about feminism or whatever makes my channel grow. I'm being too cynical for my own good. It's not even been a year yet and I'm being a bit too cynical. Okay, but that's enough rambling. That's enough rambling. Thank you everyone for joining me. I'm done talking now. I'm done yapping. I need to stop yapping. Thank you everyone for joining me today for this relatively more serious stream. I needed to do it anyways. At least I felt compelled to. Especially after the feminist stream I did like a few weeks ago, which was also to like a resounding 0 success, but like it felt like I owed it to do it anyways. And it's there forever, so maybe it'll be relevant in the future, but for now, you know, woohoo. And I hope that if you were a dude, that you, after hearing what I had to say, felt somewhat inspired, or like, I hope I made you feel a little less anxious and then a little more anxious. I hope I made you feel a little less anxious about talking about these issues, and then I made you a little more anxious in like the thinking, oh okay, but like now what? I'm in an existential crisis now. I hope I made that a bit. I hope I gave you a little bit of an existential crisis too. That's my goal, you see. That's what I sell. That's actually what I sell. Andrew Tate sells like an alpha male course. I sell like existential crises. That's what I do. And I want to, obviously, for the men to know that, yeah, like, I'm here with you, man. I get it. Will I do a stream for like NBs? Probably not. Not yet, at least, because I don't know enough about it to talk about it. But I do know enough about men to talk about men, and I know somewhat enough to recommend where you would read about women. I don't know enough to talk about women, but I know enough to point you to the direction for where I think legitimate people are speaking about women. That's what I could do. It's not like I'm never talking about this topic again, or like men's issues again, but I really wanted to dedicate this specific stream to this specific problem. It was supposed to be last month, but it is what it is. That's it. Okay, that's it. Hopefully this fixes my gender ratio for my viewership. You know, I haven't actually checked. Hold on, let me go check right now. Audience. Oh, we're still on 80 to 19.9. Yeah, okay. 20 to the 20% men out there. I want to say that I see you. That's what I want to do. I want to say that I see where this is coming from. The struggles, even if you don't personally experience it, you must have someone in your life that's struggling with it. So that's what today's stream's for. It's not necessarily for you, maybe, but also for, like, you know, people you know.